Good afternoon, John. Donovan.
Hey, Marty, Keller.
Our friend John in Oceanside, California. Marty Keller here in Sacramento as we start our third year of podcasting about the accountability practice.
Wow.
And before we hit the record button, you had asked the question, what haven't we talked about?
Yeah.
And so I invite those of you who watch this podcast to let us know, what would you like us to talk about that you think we haven't talked about? Maybe we did and it's been a long time. Maybe we never have. So please feel free. If you're watching this for the first time, please hit the subscribe button. We're almost to 100 and we'd like to get us over that particular YouTube barrier. So please subscribe and support this, support the disseminating this information. So, and then we'll probably come up with some things too. But I wanted to open today by sharing an experience that I had starting the last time we were together. So the last podcast, you and I hung out with Dan Gutierrez and had a really great conversation. And an hour or so after I finished the recording and getting it to our dear friend Cindy, who edits and uploads our podcast to YouTube, I found myself having a tightness of my chest, and it was hard to breathe, and I ended up getting an ambulance, calling 911 and getting an ambulance, and went to the emergency room at my hospital, where it turned out I have a pulmonary embolism. I had a pulmonary embolism, which it turned out, in talking to a specialist this week, was pretty much a result of having gotten COVID. COVID has one of the things that it has done to a lot of people is heightened possibility of blood clotting, and so that's what happened to me. And so that was Friday night, two weeks ago today, and when the CAT scan revealed this was going on, the doctors ultimately decided the best thing to do is to have me do a procedure where they put a wire into one of my veins and just go up and literally grab the clots and suck them back out and get rid of them. So they did that, and there was a lot of clotting. It took them 2.5 hours to get everything out. And then, so that was Saturday, midday Saturday, and then Sunday after lunch, they said, you can go home. So this experience in the hospital was less than 48 hours, but it was a very acute condition. And had I not gotten it treated, I probably wouldn't be here having this conversation with us.
Wow.
But what I want to report is how little anxiety I experienced through this whole process. And this is, I want to explore your thoughts about how practice creates something like this for us, that we're not doing this practice merely to deal with things that make us crazy or prevent us from having good relationships or whatever, that there's a far more profound payoff that is available to us by doing this work. And it may not even be something that we intend, or we may set as an intention without any realization of the profundity of that intention. And so this was my experience from the moment the advice nurse whom I called when I was having this experience said, you need to call 911 right now. And she said, I'm going to call you back in 5 minutes to make sure you called. And my first thought was, hell no, I'm okay. I'll get through this. And the very next thought was, I had a deep knowing. I had a thought from here, from in my being, that said, this is the right thing to do, call 911. And John, I called them within 10, 15 minutes. I don't remember how long it took. The fire department came and hooked me up to their measuring machines and got my vitals and all that kind of stuff. And I was at peace. I was like, okay, let's do this. This is what needs to be done. I'm signed up. Let's go. Got to the ER and I spent 6 hours in the emergency room. And they're telling me that I have this blood clot thing, and I'm like, again, there's part of my mind goes, what the hell is that about? And then there was this other part, a deeper part. And this is, I'm having a hard time putting into language my experience, but there was something in the depth of me. And it wasn't esoteric. It wasn't floating away somewhere. It was right there in the emergency room as I'm lying on this bed. There was a part of me that said, okay, so we have blood clots. What do we do now? What's next? And when they mentioned they wanted to admit me to the hospital, again, there's that little voice that goes, I don't want to go in the hospital. No, no. But that was immediately replaced by, okay, when? And so that was my experience through the whole time that I was there. There were a couple of times when I really felt fear. I mean, I felt that fear that in my chest and my guts, like, oh my God, I'm going to die kind of fear. And I was graced by having that witnessed. So it happened several times when I was with a nurse or a nurse's aide who asked me how I was doing. And I just said, I'm scared. As they were wheeling me to the operating room, I said, I'm scared and I'm sad. And the nurse, when I got there and I said that, she said, well, of course you are. And we're going to take good care of you. So you're going to be okay. And then it went away. So what I want to share with us is I didn't plan for this. I'm not doing accountability so that when some scary physical, potentially death-causing physical condition arises in me, that I'll be peaceful and okay with things. That wasn't my actual goal, but that's what happened.
That's what happened. Yeah.
That's what happened. So what I want to maybe engage with you, a conversation from your life experience. Do you think I'm correct in assessing this level of peace and serenity in the face of something frightening and scary and potentially death-causing is a result of this practice?
Yes, it's my experience that it is. One of the things I wanted when I started this was a sense of peace. So I created the intent, I want to live in peace. And I find myself in this centered place, not dull, like if something tragic is happening around me or crisis, or I find myself in this centered place with a capacity to respond to what's happening in the present moment without interference. Christ said he called us all, one of his messages was he called us all to a peace beyond all understanding. And that's what I'm hearing you explain. And it's the end result of healing, of looking at those things that I used to be reactionary around about with, and owning my reactive response, knowing that it came from a wounding, not really what's going on out there, and paying attention to what's being held in my subconscious, causing these reaction responses, and then finding myself less reactive. And the word I use is lucid. I don't know if it really fits or is a big enough word. Lucid in my life. When my son-in-law passed away, I felt shock, oh my God, disbelief. And I was in action, pro-action about what my daughter needed, where I was, how to get to her. And still in this deep feeling, shocky place, and been able to maneuver throughout my life without breakdown or shutdown or, oh my God, to be able to feel the depth of what's going on and move, be proactive in my own best interest. So yeah, this is, I went into 12 steps, namely Adult Children of Alcoholics 12 steps, wanting to get fixed or figure something out or get the answer. And I found myself in this process of self-discovery. They call it the recovery process. A better term for me is this process of self-discovery of what's going on internally, how I work. You know, owning my character defects or my proclivity to be a rager, which is what I was, and owning it, and then coming up with this process of accountability throughout my, there's not one thing that happened that this, oh my God, I know this. No, it was a process of on my own self-education, my own self-awareness. And I find myself in that place where you are. I created an intent to be nonviolent in any potentially violent or violent situation. And when I said that in the jail, they all kind of like, what, that's dumb. Don't, why would you not want to be, reciprocate? If somebody's being violent, I'm going to be violent too. I don't know. My intention is to be nonviolent in a potentially violent situation or violent situation. So if something happens and somebody comes at me with a knife, I will tell you what I did, because and it is my intent. And I was at home alone. My wife, my then wife, was on a trip to see her daughter. And at 2 o'clock in the morning, I heard a loud noise in the front of the house. And my thought was, oh my God, somebody's in my house. Violent situation. I found myself sitting up in my bed going, I'm coming out. And then getting out of bed and walking down the hallway, hearing myself say, I'm an old guy, I'm coming out, I gotta go to the bathroom. And then walking down the hallway, knowing there was somebody in my house. And I walked past the bathroom, and on the floor were a bunch of broken votive candles that were on a shelf. The shelf gave way, the candles broke, nobody's in my house. So I went back to my bed and I lay down and I thought, oh, it worked. I was in my mind, a violent situation. Somebody broke into my house. And I responded in a nonviolent way. I gave that person information. I'm coming out. I'm an old guy. And I gotta go to the bathroom. So, and that was a nonviolent response. I didn't grab for the baseball bat. I didn't grab, I'm gonna kick your ass. So that intent, your intent is to live in joy and community. I know that's a paraphrase of it.
Pretty close.
Yeah.
I intend to create a world of joy, peace, freedom, community.
And that happens no matter what the outside circumstances are. They could be tragic around you. And that intent gives you options in this moment that you wouldn't have had unless you had created that intent. I wouldn't have had those options to me unless I had created that intent 5, 6, 8 years before that, not knowing that I would be in that situation.
Right.
Yeah.
It's really kind of cool, because I remember you saying on this podcast, and tell me if I got this wrong, that in one of your first meetings, either AA or ACA meetings, you said, I just want a moment's peace.
Yes.
And look at how you've gone from a moment's peace to only peace.
it's an embodiment. It's like I lived there.
Right,
It's
exactly.
incredible.
That's what I'm talking about.
Yeah, and see, I had no idea this existed. You had no idea that this calmness in the face of crisis was there, and yet it was there, and it was in alignment with intent, and it's in alignment with us doing the accountability practice, owning our character defects or those things that we have a resistance to owning about ourselves that we see in other people project, and healing ourselves. It's that temple of Delphi in Greece, that old temple, it had on the entrance, above the entrance, know thyself. And I was reading a book one time and somebody said, you didn't even have to go in. All I had to do is read that. That was it, know thyself. And yeah, so, wow.
You know, they often forget the other thing it said underneath that. It said Starbucks coming soon.
That's funny. That's I like that. Oh, wow.
Sorry, I couldn't help it.
Okay. Yeah. So,
Well, you know, it's interesting. Maybe one thing we could talk about, explore a little bit more for particularly the newcomer. And if this comes up in our meetings, I don't know if it comes up in your Saturday morning meeting, but it comes up a lot in our Rusty Nail meetings about people get stuck on the intention. And people sometimes think that an intention is like some kind of prediction, or it's some kind of magical thing. If I intend this, then I have to do that. And what I've come to understand, and maybe you can comment on this, and maybe I have it differently from you, but I set an intention without any understanding of how that intention is going to manifest itself. In fact, I may intend something I don't even know what it's like. I may intend to experience peace, and I've never experienced peace. And so for me, my understanding of setting an intention is really it's a conversation with God. It's a conversation with the universe. I know the universe can deliver that which I personally do not know how to deliver. And so my job is to notice what I want and give it voice through an intention.
correct.
And then let the universe, the higher power, whatever words people want to use, show me how.
Yes, exactly. So my life in its chaos and drama and violence was a direct result of an intention. It's when I went through whatever I went through in my childhood, and I said, nobody's ever going to do this to me again. That
In
was
effect, an intention.
an intention.
Yeah.
So I developed this gruff exterior, the violent reactive behavior to keep people away from me.
Yep.
It works. Although it hurts, it causes destruction. I'm miserable. I need to drink just to feel anything, or I need to be cruel just to feel anything. That's all true. And the intention, nobody's going to do this to me again, gave me the wherewithal to create this persona that kept people away. Okay, if it worked that way, if I own that persona, I mean, feel that, oh my God, that hurts. Not only me, but the people I did it to. I intend to be kind. Now, down the road, I get feedback from people that they feel safe around me. It's like, well, I didn't go wake up and I'm gonna make people safe around me. It happened. I do, now that I've noticed that, I do intend that, create sacred space, to create a safe space for people to heal. Yeah, it's everything that's manifest was first a thought. Everything that's manifest. Every condition that I found myself in pre-recovery manifested from a thought. I'm not enough, I'm not worthy, whether it was in my conscious or not. it was in my subconscious, because that's what I was told as a child. There's something wrong with you. You need to be better. You need to do it a different way. You can't be you. That was the message. So kind of lost my train of thought. That message manifested into a thought, I'm not enough, even though it's in my subconscious. Because you asked me, I'm okay. You asked me, I'm a nice guy. You asked me, I'm competent. But that message, that subconscious thought, manifested all the disease, or I'm gonna say trouble in my life. All the discordance is the word. Manifested the discordance in my life because it was an intent that I owned. I'm not enough. So not enough. This is, and I manifested in my way of being in the world, not enough. And it wasn't in my consciousness. So it's like, how do you figure that out? Well, we're talking about how you figure that out. So.
Well, and it's interesting because if I have, I'm not enough as my intention, then I will see not enough everywhere, not only inside of myself.
Right.
But I'll see that inside you, my partner, my job, my culture, whatever.
You did that wrong. They did that wrong. And that's when I talk about the barriers to you having what you say you want that you don't have. Excuse me. The third one is expectations. And that's where the expectations manifested, like, oh, they're condescending, or they're assholes, or they don't care about me, or those are the expectations that get articulated and manifest.
You know, it's ironic that the major avenue toward discovering what my hidden intentions are, those intentions that I set as a 2-year-old, 3-year-old, 4-year-old, that this isn't going to happen to me ever again.
Right.
Perfectly natural, perfectly understandable, perfectly lawful. And now here, years later, I'm still living as if I'm in that fraught situation that the 4-year-old experienced, and I'm not. I'm 65 years old, and I personally now I'm 7 years old. I don't live there anymore.
Correct.
So how am I going to discover that? Well, the irony is, what I learned in doing accountability work with you is that it's through uncovering what we call the shadow. And the shadow shows up in those judgments I have of you that are critical, negative, complaining, and that if I'm in the hands of a skilled practitioner like you, and a group of people who are looking to find what's really going on inside ourselves that we can't see on our own, then it's this shadow, which shows up as a trigger, as some kind of emotional judgment about someone else. It's always about someone else. That is the doorway that if I can open that, I can see, oh, that's my belief about me.
Yes.
And then to feel the impact of that. I mean, one of the ones that you say, which many people comment on, John, is I'm mean to the point of cruelty. To be able to own I'm mean to the point of cruelty. And when I first owned that, I was freaked out.
Yeah.
Again, once I was willing to own it, I saw how true it was. Whereas before I was willing to own it, I was, I'm not me.
Right.
I'm a nice guy.
Yeah.
Everybody likes me. Until I was willing to own I'm mean to the point of cruelty, and I saw they were not World War II kinds of cruelty. They were little individual pinprick cruelties.
And as you're talking, one of the ways I manifested mean to the point of cruelty, but I was thinking somebody needed my help, and my criticism, my judgments, my sarcasm was me simply helping them because they needed which is telling them that they're idiots. And the message is, and that's mean. And then I would continue to do it to the point of cruelty. to where they'd be crying, and I go, "What's the matter with you? You asked me to help you. I'm helping you, and now you're like you're all crying. What's going on?" And I didn't understand the pain that I was inflicting, the trauma that I was recreating and or actually stuffing inside myself, or giving it to them in a being emotionally, verbally, or physically violent. So.
And that's the difficult thing for many of us. It was difficult for me to face, because that's, you know, part of the defense mechanism is to block out those insights into ourselves.
Yes.
And the way it works is the discovery both Freud and Jung made, is that we then see them outside.
Yes.
I see my cruelty in you. You're a cruel son of a bitch.
Right.
Or whatever it is that I, with in some kind of emotional jolt, judge about you, then that's really about me. And the capacities, and what you bring to the accountability practice is the commitment to neither blaming nor judging ourselves when we face and own these truths.
Right.
Like, can I own this truth about myself without it becoming another excuse for me to beat myself up?
Correct.
And when I first started doing this work, that was hard. That was hard because the habit was to grab onto every negative thing and pummel myself with it.
Yeah.
Like there was no thought. There was just, it was an automatic, habitual practice that I had learned as a little kid.
Self-criticism, self-deprecation.
Self-hatred.
Self-hatred, yes. Yeah. And usually in the form of some kind of humor, trying to be funny and making myself the butt of the joke, or making somebody else the butt of the joke, which is cruel. Cool. Yeah. Wow.
So maybe for the newcomer, you could walk us through a little bit about this facing and learning about and eventually integrating the shadow, integrating the I'm cruel beyond the point of, I'm mean beyond the point of cruelty.
For me to begin this exploration, I wanted something that I didn't have. So when me explaining this process to somebody who has identified something they want that they don't have, it could be a sense of peace, could be a sense of self-love, could be a sense of self-forgiveness, could be feeling safe in my own skin. And that's you looking for something, which opens you up to hear what I'm saying differently. So we could just take a moment where we're watching. And the question I have for you is, what do you want that you don't have? Could be in some character asset, some quality, some affirming thing about yourself, like a capacity for compassion, or self-nurturance. And then identify that. And then once you've identified that, I can talk about what's standing in your way, which is your experiences. Everything you've experienced from conception to this present moment has created that awareness that you don't have something. And those experiences that you had, how you put them together in your beliefs, perceptions, and patterns of behavior, and then the expectations that you created from that experience, those beliefs, perceptions, has led you exactly to where you're at. And those are the barriers. And what I say next is, what I'm telling you, the thing standing in your way of you simply moving towards that thing you say you want, that you recognize that you don't have, right now in this moment, is everything you say, think, and do. And I add, choose not to say, not to think, not to say, not to do, which is all inclusive. That's your total experience that brought you to this place where you've noticed you don't have something, is what created that. I'm away from that. So, based on what they hear me say, I ask them, what are they feeling? And I'll say it again, everything you think, say, do, choose not to think, not say, not to do, is the barrier for you simply moving into a sense of peace or confidence. And then I ask them, what are they feeling when they heard me say that? And they'll usually tell me, I'm screwed, or, oh my God, I got a lot of work to do. Well, if you think you're screwed or you think you got a lot of work to do, what's the feeling in your body? And then I assist them to recognize a body sensation. And that's the beginning of this process, because I think it was Einstein that said, you cannot solve a problem with the consciousness that created the problem. You must look for something new. Well, the new thing, albeit I've been in an emotional state, I can deny it. I can say I'm not feeling, or I can, when I get in a feeling state, beat myself up for being weak. That's the way out, is through that feeling body, because that's where we hold, that's where our little boy, little girl is in that subconscious part of ourselves, scared to death and hurting.
Well, and it's the new element that you've just introduced
Yes.
into that world of obstacles that you were looking at.
Right. So, and then I go on to explain the way to create an emotion that is equal to or greater than the subconscious pain is to simply own the truth about where you find yourself. No blame, no judgment. That's there where I got, I'm mean to the point of cruelty. I said, I'm mean to the point of cruelty, took a breath. I'm mean to the point of cruelty is a direct result of my experience, beliefs, perception, patterns of behavior, and expectations I created from my subconscious. I'm mean to the point of cruelty is in alignment with the trauma. Of course I'm mean. People are scary, people hurt you. People that say they love you hurt you the most. Of course I'm mean. That's a survival technique, and it worked to keep me alive until now. And now I'm tired of surviving. I want to thrive. So owning I'm mean to the point of cruelty validates the trauma, the reason, the experience that got me to mean. There's a feeling tone, and then I say, or I lead people to say, it is my intent to be kind, which is an intention, a directive, consciously, that fuses with that pain energy, is nurturing and self-validating. That nurturing, self-validated experience goes back down into my subconscious, reframed, and all the information that drove me to the point of cruelty is different. So I start manifesting differently. I start thinking about things I never thought about before. I realize things about myself that, oh my God, I'm not a nice guy. If I were a nice guy, I wouldn't have to tell people adamantly that I'm a nice guy. I would just be nice and move on. And the pain, destruction that I created in my life was in alignment with my trauma. The safety, warmth, and compassion that I provide now is in alignment with my subconscious that's been healed from all that trauma by simply owning the results without blame or judgment. That's what I got for you today. We're going to talk more about that.
Let's explore a little bit the predisposition that actually allows this to happen. And by that I mean, again, for the newcomer or for people who have been doing this for years, the truth is that we always already have all of the things that we need to create the life that we want. And that, so again, this is me talking and interpreting accountability, and you may have a different spin on it, but what is the challenge is that this is, you talk about the reticular activating system, which is a network of cells that essentially is the referee that says what gets through to our consciousness.
Right.
And so, and that referee gets trained by us.
Yes.
And it gets trained by our intentions and our desires. So that when, as a little kid, I said, I'm only safe if I'm alone, then from that point on, what I would see is ways to be alone and to keep people away.
Yes.
And to see how solitude works out in the world, and I'm not alone because everybody's alone in some kind of weird
I
fashion.
figured out a way to be alone in a crowd.
Yeah, exactly.
Become invisible in a crowd. Yes.
Well,
yes.
we've also talked about, I would find the guy that I wanted to meet in that crowd was a guy that would help me be alone.
Yes. Yeah.
So what's going on then? So my understanding of the practice is I intend to create a world of joy, peace, freedom, and community. And now I've added health. I intend to create a world of joy, peace, freedom, community, and health.
Yes.
Is that I'm training the referee that is my reticular activating system to see joy, peace, freedom, community, health, inside and outside. So that what comes to me, regardless of the fact that I'm in an emergency room with blood clots in my lungs, is I'm in a place of joy, peace, freedom, community, and health. That yes, I will feel fear. I will face a difficulty that I will have to deal with, and I'm not anxious. I'm not anxious. And it's that's what passes understanding.
Yes.
Because like you said earlier, if you had told me this when we started this work, when we first met, that this would happen, I would not be able to even hear that, much less disagree with it.
Yes.
It just would have been blah, 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 blah.
Yeah. Yeah.
And so, yeah, oh, okay, fine. And so I recognize that I may be sharing this and people are hearing me going, you know, I have no idea what the hell that guy's talking about. And that's fine. But I'm here to say that the process and the reason why I go to meetings now 3 times a week is because I want more.
I want more.
And there's something about, we've talked about this in previous podcasts, but there's something about having a group of, we can call them enlightened witnesses, we can call them fellow travelers, we can call them manifestors of love, I don't care. There's something about the doing this in the presence of other people that accelerates the changing of my reticular activating system. Now, I've always had peace, I've always had joy, I've always had freedom, but I didn't see it because I was concentrating on something else. I was concentrating on keeping myself in a prison because that prison felt safe for a 4-year-old.
Yes.
And nobody taught me as I became an adolescent or a young adult. No one ever taught me, oh, guess what? You're creating your own prison. And would you like to know how to get out?
Yeah.
I didn't have that.
No.
In fact, because my reticular activating system only saw prison-like evidence, that I was constantly reinforcing the walls, thickening the walls of the prison.
Yeah.
And so it took a whole new body of information of which I was ignorant.
Yep.
Even though I intuitively knew, I intuitively had that information, I had no way to bring it into consciousness and formulate it into language.
Yes. Until
I met you and we started doing accountability.
Yeah, exactly.
And so we just do it because we want to. I do it because I want to learn more.
Yes, and there's plenty more.
Well, I think there's an endless amount
of abundance, of joy, of creativity, of intuitiveness, of inspiration, of imagination. It's like, wow.
Like fun.
Yeah.
It's interesting to me as I work with people that are committed to themselves and committed to this journey. how stingy we have most of us taught ourselves to be when it comes to being open to fun and joy and adventure.
Yes.
And carefreeness.
Mm-hmm.
And as a part of the joy of facilitating meetings is being able to introduce to people the possibility of those experiences.
Yeah.
And again, they're already in us. You can't take that away, but you can repress it.
Yes. Yeah.
And again, we repress these things all in the service of some young kid, pre-verbal kid's version of safety.
And need to survive. Yes.
Yeah.
Yes, exactly.
Again, utterly lawful, utterly understandable. And the more I study this, the more I think every human being goes through this, regardless of the degree of trauma. The birth itself is traumatic. The individuation process, as we separate ourselves from our primary caregivers, usually our mothers, that's traumatic. The attachment process is traumatic.
Yep.
And so it's like part of the deal.
Yep.
Everybody goes through it.
Part of the human experience.
Yeah. So what would happen if I actually reveled in that rather than resisted it?
We're finding out.
Exactly.
I revel in this menagerie. Like I'm right where I want to be.
Yeah. Or like our friend Rodney says, I take refuge in reality.
I like that. I've never heard him say that.
Oh yeah.
If I have, I've forgotten it. I take refuge in reality. Try that on the freeway.
Yeah, but it doesn't get more real than the freeway.
There you go.
So the interesting thing is that if we can drive this appreciation of what we're up to a little bit more deeply, one of our principles is I'm always getting what I want. So earlier in the podcast, when you said that as a little kid, I set an intention that resulted in this configuration of thinking and belief system and, you know, your obstacles there on the board. And that the same power that allowed me to create that will allow me to create something else.
Exactly.
That
the good news is I'm miserable and I created it.
right.
If I get that I created it, what do I want? I'm a creator.
Exactly.
Oh my God.
And so for me, that's like the next frontier, is to know myself as the creator. Not as just as a concept,
right?
Which is maybe that's where it's got to start, but to know it as the expressed experience of my embodied electromagnetic, biochemical, human being experience.
Correct.
So I'm wondering, as I say that out loud, I'm wondering, it's like I'm going to set an intention. I intend for this experience that I had with COVID and pulmonary embolism to remind me that I'm the creator of my experience. Because everything that happened to me, I created.
Yes, somehow, some way.
Even though it was unexpected.
Yeah. That was unexpected. And I want to say the peace and tranquility and serenity I find myself in was unexpected. And it showed up based on my intent. Yes.
So the point I'm trying to make is that when we get results that we can trace to this work, then we can, as in a scientific experiment, we can now bank them.
Correct.
And rely upon them and build upon them as we go into the next iteration of the mystery of our lives.
Correct. And the way I articulate that is noticing the difference from when I started to now. I notice the difference, and that's the way my conscious, cognitive, deductive mind works. I can make a connection to what brought this difference to me, which is my capacity and willingness and ability to own where I find myself. What did Rodney say?
Take refuge in reality.
Taking refuge in reality, that reality is exactly where I need to be. Owning it, knowing that I'm a prime participant in it, that I'm creating this awareness. This it's either a prison or it's wide open spaces, freedom.
Well, and that's why one of the things that I appreciate most about the process is it's really very simple. What am I feeling? What do I want?
Exactly.
What am I feeling? What do I want? And we've joked before, it took me, I started to get good at what am I feeling? And it took me several years to then pivot to what do I want?
Correct.
Again, in that sense that, I don't deserve joy. There's a sense I see in working with people. You can see this this resistance to having what we deserve, or deserving to have what we want.
Right.
As
Yes.
if that itself, that deeply hidden belief itself is a barrier.
Yep.
And so when you ask people, what do you want? It's fun sometimes to watch people struggle with just a simple question. What do you want?
Haagen-Dazs.
Yeah, exactly.
Could be that simple, or
Yeah.
could be a sense of self-ease or sense of self-forgiveness.
Well, sometimes as my experience early on was in answering that question, I had this like grandiosity trowel that I had to slap onto it. Well, what do I want? I want the world to be at peace. It was like, no, how about right now? What do you want?
Yeah.
Just in the moment. Don't worry about tomorrow.
That's right.
So don't worry about an hour from now. What do you want right now?
And the world doesn't need your help.
Right.
And the way to effectively affect or influence the world is to be you now, and in your radiance and your beauty and your capacity to create, in one person at a time, and the whole world changes.
Right. So I wanted to raise this because I think it's, again, for those of you who are thinking of getting involved in this work, it's valuable to recognize how much desire plays in the actual manifestation of our lives.
Oh yeah.
And that simple question, what do you want, is often so startling, because we have a hidden want to not have what we want.
Yep. Or we don't deserve what we,
right
anything good, and if we do, we got to work hard for it.
Right.
Oh my God, it's all mine.
Well, and then we have to assume it's not going to last.
Yeah.
It's only borrowed.
Yeah, wait for the next shoe to drop.
Exactly.
Everything's okay right now, but the next shoe, I don't know when the next shoe's gonna drop.
Right.
Yep.
Yeah.
Well.
So what else, John?
I'm feeling complete.
All right.
Yeah, I'm feeling like we're gonna do it again. We're gonna go over this again some other way.
Really?
Oh my God. Because it's right here, right there. That's where it is. And then we're gonna keep talking about this until everybody goes, oh, there it is. There it is. Oh, I see it now.
Yeah, exactly. It's like, do you ever you ever get one of those books where they have these illustrations that you have to look into differently and a new illustration pops out? It's like that for me.
Yeah.
It's like changing the lensing,
Right. The focus. Exactly.
seeing through that which presented as opaque and turned out to be translucent.
Right. And oftentimes amazingly beautiful.
That's, yeah, especially that, especially if we want it to be.
Yes. Yeah.
Exactly. Well, again, I invite anybody who's watching who would like to participate in the meetings where we actually do this work that we're talking about here. At the end of the podcast, there'll be John's email address and my email address and a list of the meetings that are available, and just shoot us a note and we'll be happy to send you the Zoom URL. They're all on Zoom. So I know that in the meetings that we manage out of here, we have people from all over the country, and I know that you have people in your meeting on Saturday morning from all over the world. So everyone is welcome. You can come to a meeting and not say a word.
Yes.
Or you can come to a meeting and jump into the deep end.
Right.
There's no right or wrong way to do this, but there is information that might be of value to your life, to you creating the life that you want, the life that your heart is desiring to experience, in spite of your mind going, you can't have that.
Correct.
Like, consider the possibility that you can.
Yeah.
All right, John. Well, thank you very much for your time as always.
Yes, you're welcome.
And we'll talk to you next time.
You got it, Marty. Thank you.
You bet. Thank you.
Love you.